Good evening, sir. How's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's officially like cold weather now because it's November, so you can't really
That's
get
true.
away with it being fall, even though it's still kind of fall a little. It just doesn't feel like that anymore.
I think we're sort of in a. I won't say we're in a similar area because I'm in the U.S. and you're in Canada, but
hmm
I think that we're both sort of on the East Coast ish.
I
I
think we're in
think.
that very broad region on the East Coast. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not saying that the weather we have is exactly the same, but it's getting colder here as well.
Yeah.
And there's storms and stuff.
hmm Yeah. Like in my neighborhood, fall is maybe only 3 weeks compared to other seasons in length, and then it gets just bitter cold. And that's already started as of today. Yeah, but hopefully can warm things up for those in similar situation listening tonight with this conversation we have. Um, but yeah, you're back again. Uh, yeah, really climbing up the ladder to be the most frequented co-host.
Champion. Yeah. How far am I from being like the title holder?
uh, you're pretty close. Like this is definitely 14. Um, for you, and I think the lead is 15. So yeah, you're right up there.
You didn't think it was possible.
Well, yeah, anything is possible. I'm glad to have you here. So yeah, it's okay. Um,
Just kidding. No,
excuse
I'm
me.
happy to be here.
Yeah. So yeah, it looks like we're coming in good, nice, and strong, which is awesome. So yeah, let's get this show started. Welcome to Scripts on Saturdays, the only screenplay review show on the interwebs discussing scripts both professional and amateur circulating around Hollywood, giving you, the TV and movie-going audience, a behind-the-scenes and inside track on what writers are pushing and what producers are buying. I'm your host, the Script Doctor, and joining me again this week is Price O. Reason. How's it going, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me again. And I'm very close to that number 15 one. But I'm excited about 14. We can't get to 15 before we do 14.
That's right. This week's script is titled "Bo Knows Infinity." It's written by Adam Best, and it came in 18th place on the 2024 Blacklist with 18 votes. The log line for "Bo Knows Infinity" is as follows: Bo Jackson gets stuck in a time loop. Lessons are learned. Price, could you share with us the synopsis for "Bo Knows Infinity"?
Yes. After a severe hip injury, Bo Jackson finds himself trapped in a relentless time loop of catastrophic injuries across every sport. Bo pursues every sport imaginable, thinking a new venture will break this time loop curse. But with every attempt and injury comes a reset. Will Bo find his true passion? Or will he forever be trapped in the year 1991?
That's right. So there's your setup right there, ladies and gentlemen.
I should have been that guy that narrates trailers.
He definitely could have replaced him.
One man.
One man can save the world. Um, so yeah, this one here is it's a period piece of sorts for time travel, which I thought was pretty interesting, and it's a simple premise. So let's jump into how it kind of starts out. It starts out by going through that famous Nike commercial where Bo plays like himself multiple times, knowing all of these various sports. Is this commercial that you remember as a kid, Price, growing up?
I'll tell you what. I remember that the commercial existed, and I remember the slogan, the whole "Bo knows."
hmm
I remember that as a kid, and that was a thing. So I knew what they were referring to. To be fair, though, I hadn't watched that commercial in probably 20, 30 years. So I actually went and then watched it. I think they provided even a link in the script, which was helpful.
They did,
And I
yeah.
watched the commercial, and it's like, okay, I remember it, but it wasn't that I got up in the morning prior to seeing the script and I remembered every single detail about it. But the general idea that after Bo Jackson, who was known for being a professional both in baseball and football, which was considered kind of a rarity and actually good in both sports, people were like, oh, he can do anything. So there was that vibe, and the commercial really leaned into that. And yeah, I mean, so that's my answer to you. I remembered it, but a rewatch certainly helped.
Oh yeah, like I will say that. Like I vaguely remember the commercial. The script does provide the link, and they just do like a hyperlink, so you just click here, and you don't have to see what the actual link is itself.
Helpful.
It is helpful. I don't always recommend it because when it comes to YouTube, things can vanish. So, but yeah, that they did that. I remember, gosh, so many things about this. Number one, hearing like how unique it was for seeing a pro athlete who is doing both football and baseball essentially in the same seasons, like either because there's a slight overlap, and I was being told by like my friends and some their parents, like, yeah, they've never lived in a life that they can remember seeing that for this time. And then the campaign of Bo Knows kind of dominated from like 1989, I think, to like 94. It was just like constantly out there. And then I remember this very rare cartoon show called Pro Stars, where Bo Jackson, Wayne Gretzky, and Michael Jordan are superheroes when they're not, athletes. And excuse me, and it was nutty, but yeah, the whole Bo Knows campaign really did work numbers for his career, and that's where this script kind of starts off. It starts off with that commercial. It reminds you about what it is, and then introduces you to, of course, Vincent Bo Jackson, who. Yeah, he's the sports superstar, and he's on Larry King Live, which really dates it because Larry King has been off the air and sadly passed away for a number of years at this time.
Right, but back in the day, sitting with that guy and his suspenders, that was considered a big deal if you sat with Larry King. I'd always wondered to myself how Larry King even kind of became a thing. There was nothing particular, nothing personal. I know he passed away.
Yeah.
There was nothing particularly spectacular about him, but he became that dude that they all kind of go and sit down with. And
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe there was something about him that he was kind of inviting to people. I don't really know.
Oh, I know why exactly. So Larry King used this philosophy. It's an old journalistic philosophy, one that's unfortunately not used today, which is he lets his interviewee talk more than he does.
Right.
So he asks a question, like usually kind of a basic one, to elicit a long response from the guest so that he can ask, follow-up questions and make it almost like a conversation, but not exactly like one. And this was something that, oddly enough, we were taught in film school about when it comes to, like, you're interviewing a subject, right? You're doing it for research, or maybe you got hired to adapt like a biography or a life story or something. You want that person to talk as much as possible. And this is how you do it. And this is and there's a number of interviews that you can like pair off of, but the most popular one was Larry King, because of course cable news was huge and all of that. And that's what you got to kind of study off of. And that's what made Larry King like so good.
You're saying he was a less is more type of guy, basically just sat around doing very little, and that put the interviewees at ease. I think also the fact that he kind of was this quirky guy with his suspenders and whatever made them feel at ease as well. If he looked like this kind of sharpshooter, if he looked like some fancy guy, maybe they wouldn't have been as at ease. But he seemed like such a at ease person. So maybe they felt that way around him.
At
That's
ease,
my 2 cents.
Down to earth to a degree. I mean, he started out in radio, or at least that's where I think he got really notices in radio first. And he was a tall guy too. He's like 6'3".
And he had like 7 wives or something.
Yeah. He had 7 wives, and he had an estranged son that he reunited with before he passed away. But he had a really interesting life, but you would never really know much about it because he was part of that philosophy where he's like, okay, so this person is coming onto my show. I'm going to do all the work to ask the best questions to get him to talk the most, and I'll do a little bit of commentary here and there, but really it's all about him, and that's why when people started to catch on, especially like press agents and everything started catching on, like, oh, this guy is not trying to do any like gotcha questions or make the story about himself. He's like, I want to know what's going on with this person for this period, for this hour or 45 minutes, whatever the interview was. And people are like, oh, we got to get on this. Like, you got to get on Larry King's radio show. Then when he gets picked up by CNN, he's like, you got to get on his live show. And then when he did the call-ins stuff like he did on his radio show for live TV, which was also pretty new. That made it pretty interesting as well, because then the average Joe could call in. Of course, you go through a typical screener, and then you would you'd be able to ask your question to the guest or to Larry. And
didn't they try to replace him with Piers Morgan or something, or am I misremembering?
Oh no,
this?
yeah, Larry was choosing to retire, and he was going to kind of like do like a little internet thing. And CNN thought the brilliant idea would be, let's replace him with someone like who's like Larry King, or at least who they thought was like Larry King, and they selected Piers Morgan, which everybody was like, what?
Well, he's not really like him. I don't
No.
think. I think that Piers is more like he is more. He likes to poke the interviewees. I don't think he's the same approach as Larry.
No. I mean, at the time they referred to him as more tabloid-like than Larry King. But
Well-
yeah, we get we get Larry King, who actually is he pops up a couple times in this script, interviewing
He does?
Bo Jackson. Yeah.
That is absolutely true. So yes, he interviews him, and this is still at the beginning when we're just kind of being brought up to speed on what's going on.
Yeah.
In 1991, it's a bit of a nostalgia ride because you got Larry King, you got the Nike commercial. You're basically being taken to that year, so you can see what people were kind of seeing and feeling during that time.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, it focuses primarily on a lot of sports. Obviously, I like that the Larry's framed as interviewing Bo Jackson, saying, "Hey, so what do you think you can't do next? Basketball, surfing?" And he's like, "Well, Bo, of course, does has his gimmick where he refers to himself in the third person. He's like, Bo can conquer anything he sets his mind to. This is only the beginning. No sport is safe, right?" And
Right.
it was a good gimmick.
Yeah, I read somewhere, and I don't know if it's true, that as a kid he stuttered, and it was hard for him to say I, so he used to say Bo, but then it became kind of a thing that he does, that he talks in the third person, and everybody was kind of cool with it.
Yeah.
Don't know if that's true. Read it. It was an interesting anecdote.
It is an interesting anecdote, but I mean, it also, like, the other part too is one of the things I liked about this script is that it reminded me, it was a nice throwback to like some of the positive aspects of the 90s. I mean, it wasn't a perfect decade, but it was definitely a great one. Not so much in fashion, but in a lot of other stuff. And the way that like Bo is able to present himself as if, a little bit innocent, but also with a touch of arrogance because of how good he was, because he was the guy who, in the start of the year he'd be football, and then summer to fall he would be baseball, and you'd be like, well, does this guy ever take a break? And he's like, Bo don't know. The one thing Bo don't know is Bo don't know breaks. And yeah, it was pretty charming. And what's interesting is that the first few pages of the screenplay kind of really tries to recapture that. And we kind of start up with the Los Angeles Raiders. So before they were moved to Oakland, we've got the Raiders in January of 1991, where Bo is on practice, and we find out that his coach, Art Shell, is really upset with Bo because he's rather run himself out of bounds during practice than risk getting injured before a game. And what was your insights to this kind of scene here about how it's establishing Bo Jackson?
I thought it was fine. I mean, basically, even though we know of the public figure or the sports figure, this was just showing us more in the day-to-day, kind of showing what he's like in his day-to-day as this sportsman.
Right.
And I thought it was fine, that scene, to kind of give us a bit of a glimpse into how this guy is sort of like, he goes all in on stuff and the kind of personality and character he has. Because even though you've seen all those commercials and you remember there was an athlete like this decades ago, it's important to show you what he's like so that you sort of can connect with the character, I think.
Yeah. And I like the fact that he's presented with a flaw of arrogance of sorts. But it's not
Absolutely.
It's not dependent on himself. He's doing it for his family as well, because he makes a fair argument. It's like, I'm not going to risk getting injured before a game because then I can't play the game, right? Like, there's a logic there. He's like thinking about himself, thinking about the team, thinking about the track record. But you also get the sense that like he thinks of himself so important that he couldn't take a hit compared to everyone else unless it was a game. And I'm thinking like that shows me that he's got what's the term? Kind of like a self-interest, something with regards to like royal self-interest type of thing, where he's too good to, he's good enough to do practice, but he's too good to go all in on the practice. He has to go all in on the field.
Yeah.
And I like the way that the writer describes his actions. Like, he's described as a rhinoceros with the grace of a gazelle. Like, he's just big and burly, but can move and dash around the field. Just kind of throwing a loop for everyone else on there. And after Art, chews him out for not getting, into the thick of it during practice, Bo decides to do one more practice play and really get into the thick of it, and he just kind of like tears through his teammates on the offensive line, and then instead of like going back to the bench, he just goes straight to the locker room to kind of clean up and head out into his Viper, where he's driving the new Dodge Viper, which doesn't come out until the year after, because Bo knows people. Yeah, so like the first 10 pages of the script gets us up to speed with who Bo Jackson is, some of the players in his life. So you've got I'm gonna be bad with some of the sports names because again, it's been a long time. But we had Art Shell, we had Marcus Allen, if I remember correctly. He was there. Excuse me. And then what else is there? Oh, then we were introduced to his agent. So we have what's his name? Richard. Richard is Bo's agent, and I guess also Bo is the only client he has. And of course, Richard is kind of appealing to him on the phone, saying, "Hey, listen, we want you to make sure that when you're going for baseball, you show up during spring training." And of course, Bo's like, "I don't know if I can do that because there's still football going on, and he's got endorsements, and he's got television appearances, and everything else on his plate." But he says, I can come in, a month later. And Richard, of course, makes the arguments like, you can't keep showing up for the season without any training. That's how athletes get hurt, and it doesn't matter how much of a genetic marvel you are. You have to kind of like follow through with what your responsibilities to each job that you have, and of course Bo's got like, there are no genetic marvels like me, just me, like that level of arrogance, which I thought was kind of, it was done in a charming enough way where you're like, yeah, this guy's gonna get his comeuppance at some point, but he's not being a jerk about his arrogance. He's not trying to put
he's
other
not
people
mean-spirited.
down.
He's not mean-spirited. He's just kind of the way he is, and they found a good balance. I agree with you. They didn't make him completely intolerable, but at the same time, that he's a bit arrogant here, and it's a great setup when it comes to the story. And the story is actually what happened to him in real life. So I think that it's an interesting setup. It's not the worst setup.
No, I like the fact that his real story is also the inciting incident, because it makes things pretty interesting. Because
true,
after he leaves practice for the Raiders and he gets his call from his agent about his ball team, he goes to meet George Brett, who is from I guess, from the Kansas City Royals, if I'm not mistaken. Baseball superstar who's known for, being a great ball player, but also having a lot of inappropriate jokes that he shares with his friends, fans, and teammates. And but apparently George and Bo are like best buds, which is really cool. And I liked that setup for them. Is they're very different people, but you kind of understand why they like each other and hang out with each other.
True.
And so we get them at like a showroom on a car lot. There's a couple of tables set up. George Brett and Bo Jackson are signing 8x10s for their fans. And what's funny is there's this one scene where like a grungy teenager is described as like think Kurt Cobain comes up, gets an autograph from Bo, and then as he's about to leave, George is like, "Hey kid, don't you want mine?" He's like, "Sure, I guess." And I thought that's cool. There's this huge fan base that's definitely more interested in Bo than the other players. But again, I can understand that because Bo is like in his early 30s and George is pushing 40 at this point in time. So he's, a ball player that's pushing 40 is kind of on their way out the door just by age, really. Like you don't really see many over 40 playing baseball because it can still do a number on your body, right? So, I mean, I thought that was kind of funny. And so we get, that little setup of Bo's work life, so to speak. And then we go to Bo's home. And we get introduced to his son, Garrett, who is about 6 years old at this time. And he's working on a pine wood derby block. So, for anyone listening out there that was born in the 21st century... there used to be this group called the Boy Scouts or the Cub Scouts, and they would teach and share and have contests about nature and woodworking and survival skills and stuff. And one of the contests that they had, they would have a pine wood derby where you make like a little derby car out of like a 4x8, not so much 4x8, but maybe like a 4x2 inch block of wood. And you'd race them down a ramp. You'd also have like what is it? Not like go-karts, but like without an engine sort of thing, like little kart racing and stuff. Like these are old things that a lot of kids would do prior to the internet.
Absolutely.
Did you ever participate in that as a kid, Price?
This specific thing I hadn't, but it reminds me of a South Park episode that they made before they became kind of annoying recently, or repetitive is more like it. Mm-hmm. There was an episode where I think Stan or something wants to build this exactly this roller derby thing. Whatever it is that this is with the cars that you're building a car. Mm-hmm. I remember that there was like a South Park episode about it, and I don't even remember all the details. But the most information I learned about this thing was from that South Park episode. I maybe I'll check it out again sometime. But I actually knew what the screenplay was referring to. It's strange to say, but mainly because of that South Park episode.
Oh, okay. I remembered it because this is something I used to do with my dad and my cousins and uncles and stuff. You have to make a car out of wood, and it has to be under a certain weight. And then you paint it, you deck it up, and then you race it, and then at the end you get a plastic trophy that costs like $10 at a trophy store. But it's all about teamwork with your folks. Like it's kind of like a parent-child thing, father-son type of thing. And for little Garrett Jackson, of course, Bo's too busy, so his wife Linda, who's also a psychologist, ends up being the one that has to use the bandsaw to kind of cut out the shape that Garrett drew on the block of wood, and then you got to sand it and paint it, and of course they paint it like booger green, like it's not a good looking derby car, and then so we kind of go over to what is Bo Jackson doing now where he's not with his son helping him make this little car, and we find out that he's on the set of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, taping with Will Smith. And of course, Alonso
Ribeiro,
who great guy, by the way. A lot of fun. If you ever get the chance, if anyone out there ever gets a chance to meet Alonzo in person, you'll be blessed to do so. He's a fantastic man.
I have met him.
Yeah.
I have met him once, and I briefly talked to him, and he seemed like a really nice guy.
Yeah.
He seems just like you'd think that he would be. He's just very likable, and he was him. You know what I mean? I can't really explain it, but if you were thinking you'll meet him and he'll suddenly be this like grumpy, disgruntled guy that's just like miserable, that's not the case. He was completely him.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain that, but that's how I felt when I met him.
Yeah, like he's not Carlton, but he's really friendly and cool.
Yes, yeah. I mean, he's not going to start doing the Carlton dance or whatever, but I'm saying like you could tell that he was like he's a positive guy.
Yeah.
He is he doesn't seem bitter. He seems like he brings like a positive happy energy of sorts, and in that sense, I think that reflects when he portrays Carlton, that kind of positivity. You sometimes see it in that character, but he's not doing the Carlton thing, but he still has that positivity.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, and so we get these callbacks to, of course, to this show. We have this scene where Bo Jackson, he shakes Will Smith's hand, and of course Will Smith is shaking it, has a tight grip, and Bo's like, "Oh, there goes baseball season," all for the laugh. And then we cut to the grade school gymnasium, and this is where we meet the scout leader and all the other Pinewood Derby monstrosity cars are all lined up on this thing. But of course, there's one really good-looking car, and it's made by the dickhead dad and his snotty son Brad, which the way he's described with like khakis and moosed hair and a walking Gap mannequin, I'm like, oh, that's Gavin Newsom. And they just describe like the car could be in the Louvre, like that's how like elaborate it is. And this all occurs while they're weighing the car during the car weigh-in, and of course, Garrett's car weighs at a half an ounce more than it should, so it's a 5 ounce limitation. And immediately Linda snaps in action. She goes over to the dickhead dad, says, "I'm borrowing your saw," and then chops off a section of the car so it can weigh so that they can participate. Which I've seen those situations before, and I think every parent that did that is like, yep, that's a good move, man, because you do your best to scale it out, and sometimes your scale might not be the same calibration as the one that the scout leader is using, and you gotta think on the fly. And so yeah, you get in fact one year I remember this one guy brought a Dremel just in case, because every year he'd get it weighed and his kid's car would be like always a little bit over, so he got a Dremel with like a circular blade on it, and it was start trimming off slivers of wood until it met the weight. It would always be funny because I think he spent like 30 minutes like just trimming off little bits at a time, because you want to be exactly 5 ounces, and so you'd trim it off, you'd weigh it, it'd always be much, you'd keep trimming it off over and over and over again. And at first it got annoying, and then it just got really funny because the guy was getting so frustrated because he's worried like, I'm gonna be, everything on the kids derby is gonna be messed up by the end, because if it wins, he wanted to of course put it up next to the trophy like a lot of dads do, and the more you're chopping off, the less of a good looking car you have at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
But then you got Dickhead Dad, as he's named in this screenplay, makes the joke of like, what does it matter if you do anything? We're gonna win anyways. And also, couldn't Bo flex his bicep and pop out a car himself? And yeah, it's weird because you have a different type of arrogance here, and this one is to be mean-spirited, and I liked the contrast out of here. I was hoping we get more of the dickhead dad in the story.
Yeah, that seemed. I like the dickhead dad idea as well, but maybe when they make the movie, they can show us more of him. Just even if they bring a funny actor to play him.
Yeah, maybe they could. So at the end of so we cut back to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air set, and at the end of it, Bo, he's talking to Will and he's talking to Alfonso, and he's asking them like, listen, I think I might want to get into this acting thing, can you have any advice? And of course they're giving him advice that is not the same for what Bo wants to hear, which is like, get comfortable looking silly, get comfortable making mistakes, break the things inside of you that you don't want people to see, and vulnerability is the name of the game. Find that, and you're cooking. And this is for an athlete who's supposed to be, invincible, an Adonis, if you will. And it's like, yeah, right. you got to break that hard exterior shell if you want to succeed in acting. And it's interesting because this is a good setup for what's going on with Bo. And as soon as he gets home, his wife, like, everybody's very happy to see him. His family's happy to see him, but his wife is a little upset that he wasn't able to at least attend his kid's derby race, and she reminds him, is like, yeah, you can't keep on thinking that you've got all the time in the world, because before you know it, Garrett's going to be all grown up, and you're going to miss that. You're going to miss participating in his childhood, and of course, Bo has this kind of fair argument, which is like he's been busting his butt out there to pay for the furniture, to be a positive role model, and to give his kids everything he never had. And Linda, pulls in her old psychologist knowledge, telling him, like, if you're trying to be a good dad in your own way, just don't like everything you do is for them, because some of it is for Bo, but Bo also says some of it's for Linda, his wife. And she reminds him that he's got this giant chip on his shoulder, which pertains to his dad and and how his dad was pretty absent growing up. And what does Bo do? Well, first thing he does is he kind of goes upstairs to peek in on his son, see what his kid is doing, and he finds his kid is playing Tecmo Bowl on the Nintendo, and he's playing his dad on the game. And
right, and during those years, apparently, I guess Bo Jackson on the Tecmo Bowl was a player that nobody could stop that player.
Yeah,
and it's kind of a known thing, so that's a little added funny element to it.
Yeah, if you ever pick the Raiders and you set up your play, Bo Jackson always made it to complete the play.
True, absolutely.
And of course, like, Bo's like, hey, what are you doing? It's time for bed. You have to get off that thing. And of course, Garrett is so happy to see him, and he refers to the game like, I thought this was the only way I'd see you today. And Bo, he's trying to be the good dad, saying like he's sorry he's missed his race. His schedule is brutal. His kid's trying to be really understanding, and so Bo tucks his son into bed, says goodnight, and then he jumps back into the next part, which is he's outside of his son's room. He closes the door. He feels like he just got punched in the gut because he missed something of his kid, and he's got this whole like attitude described as like he has to stay strong. And then we pre-lap over into the Cincinnati Bengals visiting the Raiders. This is the January 13th, 1991 game of the NFL playoffs. Yes. And if you are a Bo Jackson or a Raiders fan from this time, you know what happens here.
Yep.
And this brought back memories because I barely remembered it. It wasn't until I reread this scene that I was like, oh yeah, that was this horrible moment where, Bo Jackson is he's playing, and he gets tackled after the after like a 34-yard gain, and he dislocates his left hip. And that's basically almost like a career ender in football.
I mean, he barely even recovered for the baseball aspect, but yeah, it was a major injury, and this is just my 2 cents. I'm not claiming to be a sports expert, but I can't help but think that a guy that overextends himself to be a professional, that has to put in that kind of effort in 2 sports, the way this guy did it, and also be like an all-star in both of them, at the end, it kind of makes it seem like it takes its toll on you. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there would be another athlete that he could do both sports and it wouldn't matter, but I couldn't help but thinking that perhaps that's just a lot of a lot to put your body through to be a professional in two sports at the same time. So while it was very admirable, it's not a complete shock that somehow it's hard to maintain that level in both of them, and it would take a toll on you at the end.
Especially with football, because it's such a physical game. I mean,
Yeah, if it was like baseball and golf, he probably could have gotten away with it.
Yeah.
But I think that baseball and football more difficult.
Yeah, first of all, a lot of running involved, and of course, with football, it's a full body contact sport. I mean, there's a reason why they say, like, when the players are on the field, you're trying to murder the enemy, on the gridiron. But we see that horrific injury. We go to the Sports Medicine Center in Alabama, where his doctor, Dr. James Andrews, is examining him and reveals that he's got an avascular necrosis. So it's a bone disease that happens when blood supply is disrupted by an injury. So unfortunately, he has to get his hip replaced. And that's a pretty big thing for number one, an athlete to have, but also he's in his mid-30s and he's getting an artificial hip, which you only really hear those stories happen for people who are much older than him. And then the next part is like, okay, so Bo asks, is there another way? And of course the doctor wishes there was, and he's like, okay, an artificial hip, okay. Bo has beaten bigger obstacles is how he kind of pumps himself up for this. And we kind of go through a couple of time jumps where throughout the year, Bo gets the surgery. He starts doing commercial stuff. You got, what is it, Dennis, which Dennis is it? Is it Dennis Leary or Dennis Miller?
Dennis Leary, he was the one that used to do these kind of rants.
Yeah, the rant.
Okay, what's he doing? Yeah, what's he doing? Yeah, like that thing. So they have him doing that.
Both did the rants. One had way more vulgar language than the other. But so Dennis Leary, who's
Dennis Leary had the rants with the language.
Yeah, with the language, and he had the song as well about being a jerk. But yeah, we have this huge rant from Dennis Leary about like how nothing's gonna stop stop Bo Jackson. And
by the way, I have to say, because you said it about Alfonso, I have to say that I once met Dennis Leary, and the kind of character that you see also on screen also really shines through. It's not an act that he kind of talks and acts that way. When you in the brief interaction I had with him, he completely was 100% him.
Yeah, no, he does not put on a performance. In fact, the funny stories I always hear about some of my colleagues that work with Dennis is that when Dennis is cast in a role, they have to rewrite the role to fit what Dennis can do, because he can't do anything else. But Dennis does what he does so well that people really like it. I think he was in a Fox show that I think was canceled, where he played like an army, and not a general, but maybe
I thought it was a fire department, something. Rescue Me.
He did Rescue Me for many years. That was the big one. I had a couple of friends work on that show. But no, he did this one where he's head of a base in, I think, Switzerland, and all they do is they do laundry and cheese there, and he's like, this is the most un-American army base he's ever been on. He's trying to turn it into a proper army base. Interesting premise. I don't think it got renewed. I think it was canceled. It's been hard for me to follow shows the last few months, but yeah, we do a bunch of time jumps throughout 91 where Bo is in the training room and he's getting tests on his hip, and he's got like his slogans painted on the wall, like "Commit to Excellence," and he's getting trained at the he's getting his evaluation done in the Los Angeles Coliseum, then the Royal Stadium, and then back and forth, and it's done in a really effective way. Like, it's all like the writer describes it in such a way where you can see it's one shot of kind of like Bo on one side, and then on the opposite side, it's a reverse shot of either the medical examiner for the Raiders or the medical examiner for the Royals, basically telling him like, yeah, your recovery is pretty good, but it's not good enough to go back, into the game. So we're gonna have to like cancel your contracts, and it's a pretty rough thing for Bo to hear.
Right, and I think that that was the one thing that I liked, that they built up this kind of, that he's arrogant, but suddenly, they're kind of taking you for the ride of what it may have been like to be Bo Jackson at that time, how he could afford to be that arrogant because he's such a star at that moment, but not even in a mean-spirited way. You kind of appreciate his cocky arrogance initially, and then when this happens, you kind of feel what it must have also felt to feel this kind of disappointment that you seem to be on top of the world, and then something happens, and from being amazing in two sports, you can't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's the two sports that he was playing that really did kind of inflate his ego are now taken away from him, and the way that the writer kind of frames these two scenes that are overlap with each other, is pretty hard hitting, because you've got one guy saying, like, you failed your physical exam and our training staff can't clear you, and it's simply too big of a risk for the franchise and for you as the player. So the only remaining recourse is to release you from your contract, and of course the organization wishes you success in all your future endeavors. It's the most polite termination you can think of, and it's being said by two teams from two different sports at the exact same time to Bo, which means the one thing he thought he could try and beat and overcome, it has basically killed his career. And of course, he's kind of trying to adjust to, I guess, forced retirement, and he's at his grill, but at the same time he's also eating Doritos, which he calls addictive. And I would say potato chips, at least they used to be addictive, especially for me as a kid. As I grew older, I just can't eat them. They just don't taste the same anymore. I don't know what they did to the recipe, but it just doesn't feel like you're eating potato chips. I don't know about you on that price, but for me, it's like,
what, Doritos?
It doesn't matter what brand. Doritos, Lay's, Ruffles, like it's like
they may have.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's us that changed or the chips changed, but if you told me that they used to do something different than they do now, I'd probably believe it.
Yeah.
From now and then, I see in the supermarket they try to roll out these kind of old school Doritos, and I always wonder, does that mean they'll taste like they used to taste, or I don't know. But nothing would surprise me. I feel like all the food that we eat now tastes different than it did when we were kids. Either as kids we just didn't have much taste,
like the
or it
palate
doesn't
wasn't
taste
developed
as good now.
Yeah. I wonder that too. Like, has the palate expanded so much that chips just don't do it anymore? But yeah, so we had the little side thing here, and that addiction of chips comes back into play a little bit later. But Bo's agent Richard comes by and he says, "Hey, we got an offer here. It's totally legit and with a huge deep pockets." And Bo's like, "Okay, well, who is it?" He's like, "It's the next big thing. Wait for it, American Gladiators." And I was like, "Oh, that would have been so cool," because American Gladiators in the '90s was like a fantastic show. Cheesy, hokey, crazy, everybody wearing unitards, but going through like this ridiculous obstacle courses and brawling with each other with giant foam like staves and tennis ball air cannons and things, and you had the eliminator at the end. It was such a crazy time. I remember when they tried to bring that back with Hulk Hogan, and it almost worked. Of course, when Bo hears this offer, he gets really insulted by it. He's like, I'm not a joke. And he just kind of storms off, and he tells Richard to watch the grill. and so Linda and Richard kind of have this little conversation where, Bo goes off into his little hunting closet and constructs arrows. And Linda says, "Hey, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you Morgan, your little daughter, to help you remember what matters." And this kind of calms him down, but still puts his mind elsewhere. And he feels really kind of like, on the outs, which he should. I mean, you're still in the prime of your life as an athlete, but we got an artificial hip that's holding you back. There's nothing you can do about it. Do you take a job working for American Gladiators, or do you just, kind of fade away into obscurity? And both options to Bo don't feel like a good future for him. And we then jump to New Year's Eve, 1991, where they're at a fancy restaurant. Of course, George is there. His girlfriend Leslie is there. Linda, and they're all, having wine and enjoying the night, waiting for the countdown. Of course, we hear the big hit song of that year. What is it? I'm Too Sexy by Right Said Fred. Remember that?
Yes, such a silly song.
It was
yes,
such a silly
it.
song. I think what's hysterical is, I think it was about a decade later, I meet some friends who immigrated to Canada from the UK, and when that song played at one of the school dances, which, it's a high school dance, so it's a little bit more appropriate for it, they were shocked that we knew about that song because they thought it was like the most hokiest thing in England at the time. Excuse me. And they're like, we didn't know it exported out internationally. It's like, yeah, it did. Everybody heard it, and they're just blown away. Nobody danced to that song, though. Not at our dance. It was just, you listen to it and you just wait for it to pass before something more fun comes along.
I feel like it was played everywhere in the world, but it did have a shelf life.
Oh,
you know what I mean? It was very much a phenomena of its moment, and not one that I think really everybody wanted to really revisit later. I remember as a musician, when I saw that song succeed, I thought to myself, this is so dumb. I mean, I don't want to be mean. I understand they were kind of amusing. They had these kind of fishnet shirts, and they were kind of weird. But really, if you think about it, there's nothing particularly great about that song.
No, and I think there's some irony to it, because I don't think anybody felt that the lead singer was sexy. He didn't look.
I think that was part of the humor.
Me too. Yeah, I think that
these two guys that are dancing around with their fishnets are kind of so ridiculous that it adds to the fun and the silliness of the track. And I think that that's probably part of what got it kind of, without that video and those two funny guys, I don't know if it would have worked out the same way.
No, I agree. But we, after the song ends, we get to the New Year countdown. Bo and Linda are sharing like a tender New Year's kiss. She's wishing him that's going to be a great year. And of course, Bo's like, good riddance, 1991. Linda's like, I want to make a wish. Ready, go. They close their eyes. They make a wish. Bo really focuses. They take their custom a bit too seriously, because it's, I guess, a tradition for them. And then we get this cool little effect where everything contracts, pure nothingness, pitch black, and then the cosmos kind of explodes with like the Milky Way and supernovas and wormholes and asteroids and whoosh. And we warp speed back to Earth, to the master bedroom of the Jackson home, where Bo's eyes pop open. He rolls out of bed. Something is different. He feels better. He does an air squat, and he doesn't have any hip pain. And he lunges, and he's thinking, okay, this is really weird, but all right, I'm going to go with it. And then as he comes into the kitchen, he's seeing Linda holding Morgan in her arms while she's making pancakes. And the bowl game on the TV is Michigan versus Ole Miss. And Bo remarks like, isn't this the same Gator Bowl as last year? And of course, Linda's like, oh, the games start to blur together after a while. I guess it is. And of course, Bo asks a very important question: why is Morgan, his daughter, smaller? And she's thinking like, you're acting really weird. Did someone put LSD in your seltzer? And and he's just kind of reacting like, I feel like I'm in a Twilight Zone episode or something. And so he goes outside to grab the paper. He takes it out of the orange plastic, checks the date, and it's that Back to the Future moment where it's January 1st, 1991. And then he processes this for a bit, and all of a sudden his enthusiasm just kind of overflows, and he's like screaming, yes, Bo is back, baby. And he is super, super happy. And so, okay, Bryce, I want to throw it to you. Like, how does he respond next? Now that he realizes he's back at the beginning of the year, his real hip is back in his body. He doesn't have that injury anymore. What does he do next?
Is that the thing where it happened so many times in the screenplay? I'm wondering, is that the part that he's like, I'll be there for training exactly where they want me? Like he suddenly changed his attitude, or is this not here yet?
It's not quite here yet, but it's getting it's close to that, because this happens pretty quickly though. He's on the practice field. He, instead of running into out of bounds. And the first time he goes all the way through, he finishes off the play. Art, of course, is really happy with him. And then, of course,
he realizes he got another opportunity, and initially he's happy about it. So it goes along with what I was saying, but I understand what you're saying too. He's not doing what he did before. He's trying to do better.
Yeah, he is trying to do better. And I just quickly checked. Yes, you are right. He immediately tells his agent that, he's going to be at the Royals for the start of spring training, which Richard is
Because initially Richard, or whatever his name was, he was saying, "Oh, will you be there?" And he's like, "I don't have to be there. I'll be there in March. Tell him I'll be there when I'll be there.
Yeah.
I'm Bo Jackson." Now he's like, "Tell him I'll be there for spring training. Don't worry about it. I'm going to be there."
Yeah, and of course this is making everybody around Bo a lot more happier. We also, but the one thing that is consistent is that Garrett still enters the Pinewood Derby car with his mom, and Bo's not there.
He's still not there.
Yeah,
it was obvious to me that this is going to become a thing, and I didn't we'll get to it later. I didn't dislike that idea, but let's move on. We'll get back to that.
Oh yeah, so we get now to the playoffs again, and Bo knows what's going to happen, so he ends up altering what he's doing, and it works for the first bit until he reverses and avoids the swarm on the right, and then he gets a no contact injury, like a force ruptures Bo's Achilles, and he immediately collapses. He grasps his heel, he screams "arg," and then all of a sudden his eyes pop open, and just like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, he is back in his bed on January 1st, 1991.
Right.
And this it bewilders him, but he gets another chance. And of course, he goes through the same type of motions again. Linda asks if someone slipped LSD in his seltzer, and he's starting to get a little stressed out by this because he's lived that all of 1991. He's now relived the first few weeks of 1991 again, and then he decides to go to a colleague of Linda's who's described as a yuppie shrink.
Right, to try to figure out, what's going on with this time loop.
What's going on. And so he decides to get him just a pill, lithium pill. And of course, Bo just can't really come to terms with it, but he asks George for some advice. And George tells him this story about, there's this a player named Marty Bergen in the 1890s. He was the best catcher in the game, and Marty needed help, but back then there wasn't much doctors could do. And things ended pretty poorly. And so Bo's like, well, let me guess, Marty flamed out of the majors. He's like, no, it was much worse. Marty, ended himself. He turned himself into a Pez dispenser is how he describes it. And so George is like, listen, I just needed to make that point, which is, take the silly little pill. Don't become the next baseball horror story. and so that, again, we go through the next stuff, which is, Bo goes back to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air set. He redoes the scene. And because he's on that pill, his performance is kind of off. And, of course, the director's getting upset. And we get a little nod to Alfonso practicing what will become the Carlton dance, the famous thing from the show.
They did a bit of a quantum leap with Michael Jackson there.
Yeah, they did. I mean, this time they didn't make Bo Jackson come up with the dance. But
right, at least not that. No, but there was another part that Bo Jackson did come up with something.
Yes.
But we'll get to that later, yeah.
I'll let you set that one up because that's a good one. But then we go back to the Bengals and Raiders game. And Bo, he manages to avoid collision, and then he steps out of bounds to safety, but still a dirty Bengals defender delivers a super late helmet-to-helmet hit. Concussed Bo's lights go out, and boom, he opens them up to be rolling out of bed January 1st, 1991. The other part, too, is when he's in his Dodge Viper and he's on the phone, he is weaving through traffic like an expert because, of course, he's done this a few more times. And, he's concerned, and so is his agent. Is he's telling people that he trusts, listen, I think I'm repeating and reliving certain days and certain parts of the week, and Richard saying like, hey, all those blows to the head maybe have scrambled your brain like an omelet. And he's like, oh, thank you for putting that so delicately. My agent, the guy who's supposed to be making sure my career's in good order. And Richard said this great line, which I'll find right now, where he says, I'm here to protect your wallet and your well-being, not your feelings.
Right.
And so we go back to, he goes to another doctor's office. And he talks with a chummy neurologist who's basically saying that, no, everything is clean, like a whistle. My guess is that you're stress-related. He says if your wife wants to help, maybe a few more squat thrusts in the old cucumber patch. That
was kind of funny, yeah.
We relax at our house. And he's like, Bo's like, oh, okay, well, Bo was really sweating this. And the neurologist says, well, the only sweating you need to do is on Sundays. Go Raiders also with your wife. Just
right.
Thinking, that level of intimacy would kind of unblock his perspective. And then again, we go back to the Raiders game, and this time he gets like a horse collar tackle, and it just fractures his leg, and it's pretty grotesque. And then we get another one where his shoulder pad gets messed up, and then his nose gets broken, and then we come back again, and he's at the batting cages, and Bo's explaining his predicament to George and expressing changes from dead serious to all smiles. And George, of course, screams out like, time loop, you son of a gun, commitment to the bit. That's what a great prank takes. And Bo just can't get over it. He tries to do it again. He then does a dive and extends the ball over the pylon for a touchdown, and he got away scot-free until the Bengals dog pile on him and crack his ribs. And then he's kicked back to his home. And this one, I mean, like my buddy Tom from Midnight's Edge would love this part. So Bo is now sitting in his living room. He's watching Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure on the TV, and he's watching George Carlin as Rufus. And basically Bo says, damn, gotta find me a Rufus.
Yeah, that was actually funny. I like that.
That one made me laugh. And so he goes to the local bookstore, and the owner's like, yeah, you want maybe to talk about this professor, Kip Thorne. He's an unputdownable author. He lives up the road in Pasadena. Bo shows up to Kip Thorne's lecture hall in Caltech, and after his class, and Kip is just super excited to see Bo showing up at his class. And he's like, Bo knows theoretical physics? And Bo is like, Bo wants to. Got a few minutes? And he's like, for you, I've got like a few hours. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, that was a good scene. I like that.
And then I like that we did this quick cut to like Kip is just responding to whatever story, like all the stuff that has happened so far. Bo has told Kip off screen, which is a great writing technique. You don't want to repeat the stuff the audience already knows. I mean, that's one of the risks with time loops, is that sometimes you're repeating scenes almost identical to how they are for most other writers. But what I appreciated this one here is he didn't waste our time repeating every single detail up until the one change. He's like, you guys get the point. I think you as an audience are smart enough to get the point. I'm just going to focus on what he tries to do different at this moment and how it still sets him back to January 1st, 1991. And so Kip is telling him like, okay, you're dealing with some really heavy stuff. Theoretically speaking, getting stuck in this temporal circuit was a matter of chance. So getting unstuck should be random too. And so he's basically saying like, well, if your current direction is yielding undesired results, discontinue that approach, deploy different strategies until one breaks the cycle. And of course, Bo is like, well, that's easy for you to say, but you're asking a lion to go vegetarian. And Kip brings up this thing that was completely out of left field. He says, my dream was to be a dancer at the American Ballet Theater. And he does an arabesque pose. And he's described as he's very limber. And Kip then makes this joke like, my skill set was more to Swan Nebula than Swan Lake. And in life, we must move on from disappointments and find new ways to thrive, which relays into another part of what this screenplay's theme is all about. And Bo is like, you know what? That seems like it could be a good idea. I'm going to try and do something bigger than football anyway. Excuse me. And so, Price, what does Bo do? What's the big change that he makes after his first talk with Kip here?
Well, I feel like he tries to do a lot of things that he'd never done before. I remember that there's NBA. He joins Charles Barkley in trying to take down Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls.
Yep.
And there's something of a humorous scene there where, Charles Barkley, they basically let him onto that team even though he's not a spectacular player. But he gets better, I guess, and Charles Barkley is telling him not to piss off Jordan.
Yeah, you can't trash talk Michael Jordan because that sets him off. And
so I like that whole interaction, and we had that. I mean, again, that at the end, it seems like already. I think maybe he does it a few times. Like he loses once, and then he wakes up and he does it again. Like he really wants to beat Jordan.
He does this. Yeah. So Bo Jackson. From these time loops, you find out how committed Bo Jackson can be to a new thing. So he officially retires from football before the playoff game, so he doesn't get injured there. He focuses on baseball, and that almost works until he gets injured catching a fly ball from Jose Canseco, and he twists his ankle. And then he does another one, and he twists his knee. And he decides, okay, I'm going to quit football and baseball, and I'm going to go to my buddy Charles Barkley and ask him if I can join his ball team. And Barkley jokes you suck at basketball. He's like, but Bo's gotten better. And we find out that, we understand that this time that Bo has asked Barkley is probably the 100th time he's asked him to be on the team, because when he's playing the game, he's actually pretty good. And when he's playing against Jordan, of course, he's getting his butt handed to him. But with every new time loop, Bo is getting better, and he's memorized Jordan's moves, and he's able to counter him. And they're playing like a game. It's tied up, and Barkley is like, well, we got to throw Jordan off his game. And Bo says, well, then I'm going to trash talk him. And Bo's like, you're crazy. He's like, exactly, but it's going to throw him off his game because we have 12 seconds left. Bo trash talks him, and he just doesn't know what the subject to be. And then I think it's Barkley that says, yeah, trash talk him about how cheap he is, because it's true.
How cheap he is, yeah.
And it's pretty. I mean, Bo says some pretty funny things about how cheap. Jordan is.
I think it was funny. And then you have the thing where he actually manages seemingly to beat him, but then the basket, I think, cracks and all the. He gets injured in this whole the basket breaks and he gets injured, and then he wakes up.
Yeah, he does a slam dunk. He breaks the basket. He falls, kind of lands wonky again, and I think he twists his knee. And then he gets reset back to January 1st, 1991. And it's real. And then it just goes even crazier, where he's telling Linda, I'm going to do the Indy 500. And she's like, I don't want you racing. He's like, well, I got to do something. I got to find a different sport. So he goes to the Indy 500. His friend, George, is there on the headset with him. And he's driving and doing pretty well. He's got a Nike-sponsored car. And then he tries to go up and challenge the Andretti's. And there's a fun joke here. It's like, well, which Andretti's in front of me? And George's like, I don't know. There's 3 of them at the time. And then he gets sandwiched by the Andretti's, and he kind of wipes out, but resets again, goes even more. And then it goes into this montage.
There's boxing also. Mike Tyson.
Yeah. Okay, so we got to stop and talk about the boxing one, because that one's hysterical. Not only is it hysterical, but they use proper phonetics for Mike Tyson's dialogue with his lisp. And that
was kind of funny.
It was pretty funny to read. But everybody's talking about how, Iron Mike is going to kill Bo Jackson in the ring. And Bo's like, no, this is not how it's gonna be different. And then we get one of Tyson's first line is, he says, thaw you on the freth printh, cutie, it with Otham. And they put in all the lispy stuff, so it makes it a more fun read. And then we just follow these fights between Bo Jackson and Mike Tyson, where Mike Tyson just keeps on clobbering Bo Jackson. He keeps resetting, he keeps retraining, he keeps coming in. And then we get into something that really does stretch some more asks here, and that is, so Bo ends up learning all of Tyson's moves so well that he's able to dodge and counter and really go the distance with Mike Tyson, but Mike Tyson has asthma, and I don't think he's ever lasted more than a handful of rounds, and deliberately so, because when you have asthma, you can't go 5 rounds, let alone 12, as described in the script. But yeah, we get this big boxing match between Bo Jackson and Mike Tyson where it goes 12 rounds, and Bo's about to win, and I think he screws up and he ends up getting his lights punched out one more time, and that's when he decides to change. So he then goes to basketball. He then goes on Larry King and kind of gives up. Says that he's going to give up sports altogether, and officially retires. And what does he do? He sits on the couch and he eats Doritos all the time, and he starts gaining a ton
and I
of
think
weight.
he gets fat.
He gets really fat. And then he does this endorsement of the everything bag of Doritos. So you reach inside the bag and whatever you pull out could be any one of all of the flavors.
Right.
But then he chokes, I think, on a gumdrop or something. And then, of course, wakes up back January 1st, 1991. And he's skinny
again.
Yeah, he's skinny again.
He's not skinny, but he's not fat.
He's
anymore.
healthy again. And then he just starts going to all these extreme sports. He starts to play tennis. Then he does the Tour de France. Then he does wrestling. Then he does soccer. Then he does Kentucky Derby. Then he does competitive hot dog eating. And these are all just really quick flashes of him just doing all these crazy sports. And in between that, he's telling his best friend, gosh, why did I just lose his name? George, sorry. I tell his best friend George, okay, this is what's happening. And George makes a joke well, what you need is a Doc Brown. He's like, well, I got that guy, and he's telling me I got to explore all these other sports, and it's not really working. And then he does the groundhog thing where Bo Jackson is now reciting the quotes of everything that's happened and the actions of everything that's happening around them while they're at the batting cages, and they end up.
There was something I wanted to ask you though.
Yeah,
he basically tells him initially as proof. He says Michigan State. I don't know.
Wins
what he was
by 30
talking
points.
About,
Yeah.
30 points. But then when I looked, they actually won by 33 points. So either the screenplay has a mistake, or George just didn't care that he messed up the number. Because if you're going to prove that you're from the future or the future, you may as well get it right. Because he's like, they win by 30, but then when they say the score, they won by 33.
Well, so, I mean, the script does say that the final score is correct with 33. So the dialogue ballparks it, and then we see the actual one.
What I'm saying is that I would correct that so he has the exact number. Because
yeah.
In that case, you have to explain to a guy that the future. Now, if the game starts and you say, hey, it's going to be 30, and then it ends up 33, or vice versa, whatever it is, it looks like maybe you had a lucky guess. If you say, listen, we're going to watch this game, it's going to be 33, that leaves a lot more of an impact.
Yeah, because there's no room for error.
That looks like you're not here to play games.
Right.
Then the other things what people are about to say, and then you start thinking, wow, this guy, he knows everything. So I just felt like that was a missed opportunity. Another thing I wanted to ask you was, this screenplay, I didn't mind it, but it took a bit of a risk when it came to the formatting. The part that he's in all these different sports, it starts showing the fonts smaller and smaller. They showed actually a picture of Bo Jackson, and they're like, there's a mosaic of all these things of how they end up creating this picture
of him in pain. Yeah.
In pain. I thought that was kind of interesting. I usually don't see that in a screenplay, so I thought to myself, what would script think about this, kind of straying from the rules of screenwriting? And not the first time in this screenplay, by the way.
It's not the first time that photos have been put into a screenplay. This is the one. This was different because this one has a purpose. It's not there to try and help the writer with something that they couldn't describe on their own. This one here has a bit more of an impact because the whole idea is that we're seeing Bo attempt hundreds, if not thousands, of different athletic options or just any options in general. And each one, whenever he gets hurt, whether it's a minor injury or a serious injury, resets him back. And so they end, and the whole point is that they're trying to combine all of these things to that legendary image of when Bo Jackson was hurt on the Raiders. I think not for his hip, but for something else. But maybe it was for his hip. I can't remember because it's that specific shot, and they're just saying it's got to be the screen has to combine to form a mosaic of Bo in pain, and in order to create a good visual of that, he pulls in a pretty well recognized photo of Bo in pain. And it's a cross between like frustration and physical hurt. Like it's not just him, with that face that makes you think, oh man, that guy has probably lost a leg or something. It's more like, oh, you can tell he's hurt and he's angry that he's hurt and he's frustrated and he doesn't want to be hurt and he's trying to push forward but he can't. That type of look.
I thought that was pretty. Whatever image they wanted me to think of that I was watching on screen, I feel like even though they strayed from the rules of formatting, I actually thought it was quite effective.
Yeah, me too. Because it complemented what was happening on the screen, and it wasn't being used as a crutch. It was being used more of like kind of like delivering the final blow, so to speak, like
Yes.
a punchline. And I thought it was pretty cool. And then after that point, we go back to Kip Thorne, and we see that he's got like a chalkboard full of all the sports that he's done with all of them crossed out. And he's like, you did sumo wrestling in Japan and alpine skiing in Australia? You've literally tried everything and nothing worked. And Bo's like, yeah, but I'm not done yet, or Bo's not done yet. And he's not going out like this. And so, of course, we cut back to George, and his opening line is, this isn't the first time you convinced me of this. He's like, nope. And so they're still playing, they're still playing baseball at this point. Bo compares his life as like a Simpsons episode where the kids never grow up and I'm the oldest man alive and he's never heard his daughter speak. And you get a sense from that line that he is in a whole different level of suffering. And
yeah, he's tired, and he also makes it seem like he's already done this like 100 times or something, which sets a lot of times to keep doing the same year.
Yeah, he said he's probably relived 1991 like for a century. Like he's lost count of how many times it's occurred. And there's an irony to this, which I appreciate, which is the whole concept of Bo knows everything ends up becoming like Bo has now lived long enough where he almost knows everything. Like he knows how to do every sport, and he's tried every sport.
Right.
He's seen a ton of situations and variables. Like it's crazy. He's lived up to the legend of the Nike campaign, and it's become a reality for him, and it's become a dark reality for him. And so we get this beautiful scene where he's in the baby's room, he's with his daughter. And he just says, and this is the first time he says I, refers to himself as I in the script. And he says, you know what I want more than anything in the world? To hear you talk. And it seems like you want that too, and we shouldn't get our hopes up. And it's a really beautiful little moment, because it's only those lines. And of course, the little kid is grabbing Bo's finger. And then Bo decides to learn how to make pancakes. And ends up making them just as good as his wife does, and able to upgrade to like graduate to Mickey Mouse pancakes and then superhero pancakes, and his kids are loving it. And he's quit football this time around as well, and he's focusing on baseball, so he's traveling with the Royals on the jumbo jet. And we go back to the part 2 of the Bo Knows Baseball montage. He manages not to hurt himself catching out Jose Canseco. There's this little subplot with the batter to the opposing team who came in and said, hey, this pitcher wants you to sign his bat. And of course, Bo doesn't really chew out the kid, but kind of tells him off, and then goes back to the kid and apologizes to him. And he signs a bat for the kid for himself, and he gives a baseball that he signs for the pitcher because he hit a home run off him. And he's like, he'll appreciate the joke. And I'm like, okay, that's a cool thing. And then we have they're back on the private jumbo jet. They're heading back home, and then all of a sudden, one of the engines goes out. And the captain goes on to the speaker, and he's like, we lost an engine, and things don't look good, and if you believe in God, start praying. And, of course, you've got the pitcher, the catcher, and Seitzer, who is another team member on the Bengals, screams out, "I need to see my poodle." George is worried as well because he doesn't know, like, hey, if we die before you reset, are we like permanently toast? And Bo's like, I don't know that. How should I know? They don't. And that's the other part that's interesting. Because Bo's been around so long, he starts referring to himself to I as opposed to Bo more often. And he's like, I don't know the rules of the time loop thing, but what he's going to do is he's going to jump out the plane, remove himself from the equation, and maybe that'll work. And of course, the flight attendant is trying to stop him. And, of course, Bo manages to brush her gently aside. She refuses to help him open the door, but Bo, being Bo, super strong, he rips open the hatch and leaps out. And then the instant he leaps out, the engine on the plane reactivates. And everybody on the passengers is safe. And Bo is just falling through the clouds serenely. And as he's gliding or falling through the air, and finds tranquility, he sees a weird shape in the clouds. And the writer puts in this as an actual like clip art thing. It's two clouds on either side of a hand holding up the peace sign.
And you see it inside the screenplay.
Yeah. It's described as a hallucination, a message, doesn't matter. Bone contemplates its meaning as he goes into cardiac arrest from the stress of the daring free fall. And then he opens up his eyes back January 1st, 1991. And, his wife says that same line again, "Happy New Year, sleepyhead. Nice of you to finally join us at living." And Bo's immediate response is, "Where's that Pinewood Derby kit?" And Linda asks why. He's like, "It's time to break the cycle." Now, this part here, I liked the result, but I felt the cause and getting to this point didn't have enough setup from the perspective of Bo Jackson for me to realize that this is his next move, right? I think we are missing something.
Yeah, I agree. And first of all, tell me if at some point we stop talking because we're starting to get really far into the movie. I don't know if there's a point where we're not spoiling anymore or something.
We're getting close, but yeah, I'll let you know when we cut off.
But what I'll say is this, and this when this happened, it's not only that I felt that the setup wasn't strong enough, it really made me think of a movie like Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Now, in Groundhog Day, I felt that his transformation or what happened with him or this process that he went through was so much better fleshed out. I feel like in this movie, there's a lot of scenes and ideas that I like about it. I like that he's trying different sports. I like the nostalgia. I like that this is a real figure and all these kind of pop culture references. There's a lot of things to like, but when it comes to the structure and his transformation and the process, the journey that he goes through as a character, doesn't compare to something like Groundhog Day.
Right.
And in that sense, at this moment, exactly what you said, Script, this moment, when I read the script, I thought to myself, this script, I don't hate it, but it's less than the sum of its parts. Meaning, there's a lot of interesting things. It's imaginative, and I appreciate this Adam Best, whoever wrote it. I feel like he committed to this idea, and you could tell that there's really enthusiasm and a lot of little kind of small attention to detail when it comes to the pop culture stuff.
Yep.
Maybe so much so with all the sports references and the pop culture and the time and the nostalgia and all that when it came to really him realizing why the family was important and why he wanted to help his son, I feel like that needed to be equally as strong, and the fact that it's not strong, it seems like a minor detail, but it's a major detail for me.
It is a major detail because we get a great moment with the daughter, like we feel that one there, but we don't see anything with Garrett. Like there's a large gap between the second time he's in the time loop and Garrett does the derby to the point where he wakes up, goes to his wife and asks about the derby stuff. Like it's about 40 pages of story where we don't really get much of what's going on with Garrett and Bo. And I think this is where there's like an opportunity here for the script to really be elevated an extra point, because the the struggle in one aspect of is that he's been living 100 years and he hasn't heard his daughter talk, and she hasn't grown up. And I think he should have added on to, like, it's been 100 years and I still don't know my son Garrett. It's been 100 years and I barely know my son Nicholas, because I have spent so much time trying to break out of this time loop so I could have the opportunity to see my kids. Yet I just realized I'm still able to see them every day, and and they're in a state of arrested development, and I feel like I'm in a state of arrested development too. Like, I wanted that type of revelation to happen, and I would have liked a bit more breadcrumbs to form that yes. revelation, as opposed to just him jumping out of the plane, getting the clarity, and all of a sudden he's like, I got to pay attention to Garrett.
If you could have had that throughout his journey, that each time he's doing a different sport, his son, in some angle, or at least several times in the movie, tries to get his attention, but he's too busy because he's doing something, and he's really focusing, and he's like, I really have to get this done. It's important. Our future depends on it. And he doesn't pay attention to his son because he's so focused. Now you got to do this sport. You got to do that sport, because he's so busy breaking the cycle that his son each time tries to bond with him or approach him, and he doesn't have time for him. A cat's in the cradle type of situation, like the song. If you saw that, and then at the end something happens, instead of the peace sign in the clouds, some revelation that actually connects with not paying attention to his son, or something like that. They tried with a note that they said something like, we like you because you're you, not because you're Bo, or whatever it is. There was something, it was a step in the right direction, but something that really connects, that brings it home in a way that even pulls at your heartstrings. And he wakes up and he finally realizes what he didn't know all these times, that he messed up, that he needs to pay attention to his family. Between you and me, 100 times to do all these sports and not to realize that, also a bit much. But this is where the movie runs into the problem of, we have to have all these gimmicks, we have to have all this fun, we have to have all these references, these pop culture sports references, nostalgia references, all this type of stuff, that somehow the emotional, personal story falls between the cracks. And it's unfortunate, because this there was a lot to like here, but this is a major issue, like I said. But go on.
No, I think. Well, I mean, I would say it's a major issue in the sense that you only really need to sort of insert a moment, one or two moments within that gap of 40 pages in order for it to kind of feel like it's a through line. Because right now it starts off as a through line, and then it's interrupted by the montage, and also a number of other little scenes that kind of further extrapolate the time and frustration that Bo is going through. It's just that it's so focused on that part, and even though it's the revelation, or at least what Bo thinks is the revelation, is spending more time with his family, it comes at the exact right point of the script, but there's that gap of acknowledgement between the last time we see him. We see that, how the family is missing him, versus the time when he realizes that he's missing his family. And
compare this to Groundhog Day, the final day that he is doing everything correct, and how he studied every single thing, and how when you see that final day in Groundhog Day, you're kind of cheering him on. You understand that he's on the wave now, and you feel something good too, because all of it was set up so well. All the different incidents that we've seen throughout the movie, finally he's mastered every single one of them, and I somehow really enjoy that. And I didn't feel that here, personally.
Yeah.
There's not that catharsis, or whatever you want to call it, that exciting, uplifting feeling. I just didn't feel it. It's just it felt kind of just by the numbers. And to be fair, this movie isn't really an original idea in the sense of the Groundhog Day, because we've seen that before. The only thing that it's kind of doing different is that it's through the eyes of Bo Jackson. And that's fine, but you can never lose sight of the fact that you have to tell the story.
Yeah, and I don't think I don't think he's fully lost that sight. I think that a couple of sections of the script kind of go off a little bit off the beaten path before it comes back on, and when it comes back on, it's missing just that little bit of an element. Because they have the I think it's the birthday card, the world loves you as Bo, but we love you as Vincent type of thing. which I think it's
Not
nice, but
good enough.
it's
Not-
nice, but it
it's-
needs more. Like that needs to
needs
be
more.
that needs to be like the period at the end of the sentence, right? And we need a little bit more of those extra sentence fragments peppered throughout that gap, so that when we get to that letter, we get the full conversation, which is that we miss you, your son needs you, you need your son, and you don't fully realize that, and this now here is the final reminder of it. And we would then get the breadcrumbs, and then we would see Bo not really processing them that until he leaps out. And I think like a suggestion I would have for Adam Best in this is, as he's falling, you have that life flashes before your eyes moment, but instead of all the athletic stuff he's seeing the birth of his kids. It's the first steps of his son. First time his kids throw a ball, like those things.
Yep.
That would really make it work, because then when he wakes up, it's like, oh, I've been focusing so much on me and my sports. The things about me that actually is a legacy are my kids. And I'm going to first go right ahead and spend some time with Garrett and focus on him. And I think that's the one thing that this script is missing in regards to the setup, because the payoff is there, but the setup is the weakest aspect of it. It's like it's like he built a table with only 2 legs instead of 3.
Part of the issue here also is that it's sort of, you're going for, although I will say Groundhog Day does that better too, but you're going for this kind of tone of almost kind of funny and silly and sports stuff going on, yet this thing needs to be a little more serious, and you have to set that up properly. I really feel like the person, this Adam Best, that spent so much energy in doing a lot of interesting things when it came to all the other stuff, the sports and the pop culture and all that, he really kind of, sorry, no pun intended, dropped the ball on this other thing that he needed to do well. And again, I finished, I won't ruin the third act or anything like that, but when I finished the script, I felt, man, there were a lot of interesting things here, but they didn't do the personal story strong enough. I don't know why I'm now thinking of other time travel. It's different because it's not the same thing as, this isn't time travel, but you had the movie Click.
Right.
Adam Sandler, he can do a lot of kind of silly things and do his Adam Sandler and whatever, but there were a few scenes in that movie that were very, very powerful when it came to the human part. The part that he understood at the end, that he messed up his life and wanted to correct it, even though it's an Adam Sandler movie, especially there's a scene I remember with his father, it's a reverse situation that his father wanted to spend time with him, and he didn't have time for his father, and then he learns that his father passed away. That is actually one of the most heartfelt scenes that Adam Sandler guy has ever appeared in his life. I felt that scene, and it brought home the point that he messed up and he was trying to fix his life now. In a movie that started off more goofy and stupid, it ended up being something a little more serious. Even Adam Sandler understood he cannot skip over that human part. You know what I mean? He can make his funny faces and his silly jokes and whatever it is that Adam Sandler does throughout the movie, but he can't finish that movie without delivering on that human side. And I just feel like this movie, if I could find that, if like Adam Best sat with me in a meeting, I would tell him, man, you did a lot of things good here, but you got to rewrite this screenplay.
Well, it definitely would be rewriting a section of the second act, because that's
maybe
how you make
some of the third, maybe the second and the third. You need the second act of the breadcrumbs that you were talking about.
Yeah.
But you also got to bring it home in a way that I feel is more heartfelt. In both, like I said, the personal story, Act 2 and 3, fumble. Again, no pun intended, but fumble.
I think Act 2 fumbles a bit more than Act 3, because there are some aspects, without spoiling it, at the end where you get the sense of clarity and satisfaction from Bo and what he does and what choices he makes, and how it and then how it ties into the reality of Bo's life and career. But yeah, the thing is that the payoff is not as strong as it would be had there been those extra beats in the setup, especially as it pertains to how involved he is with his wife Linda, and how much more attention he's able to give his son Garrett. Because there's also this other theme here, which is that Bo Jackson has a chip on his shoulder with regards to his own father. And there's this beautiful scene where he goes to visit his mother's grave, and he talks to her, and he's trying to get advice to her. And it's raining, and then I think lightning strikes a tree and then knocks it down like near behind him. And he's kind of trying to figure out like what to do. And I enjoyed this scene because the Adam Best manages to convey that even with his own frustration, is so focused on being a strong provider and persevering and overcoming every obstacle that he's not seeing the forest for the trees, and he's not seeing that he needs it's his family that he made and the things that he is doing for his family that is causing him to have a similar, like a parallel course to what his father had. Because his father, like, I guess, left. His mother had to raise him and his, like, 9 other siblings. And now Bo is a father that's there, but he is never at home because he's working all the time. He's doing some sort of sport, some sort of athletic endeavor. And I think the one, to your point, the one thing that's really missing is what is a definition that Bo is trying to establish a legacy, and he has to come to the realization that he's technically done that, not just with his sports, but more importantly with his kids and the future that they have with him around. And I think if we just got that part somehow peppered into the second act a little bit better, that the things that occur in the third act would hit as hard as we would want them to hit.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So, well, one of the things that, I mean, because again, this part isn't a spoiler, but Bo Jackson does participate in building a Pinewood Derby car with Garrett. And he, he has a learning curve for it. And this is the thing that I thought was actually kind of really interesting. And this is even more to your point because it would pay off a lot stronger, where when Bo and Garrett, they race, and it's a very close race, but Garrett's car doesn't win, Bo immediately finds someplace private, takes a hammer, and then smashes his hand to reset so he can help his kid again. It's the first time where he injures himself deliberately, not out of him trying to succeed, but so that he can get another chance with his kid to try and succeed.
And while that was interesting, I will say that it once again got me starting to think about the rules of why something resets. Because in Groundhog Day, every time he goes to sleep, he wakes up, it's the thing again.
Every time at 6 a.m. it resets, yeah.
Right, because this is a year and it has to do with an injury, it's a bit flimsy. The fact that he suddenly did that with what you were saying, that he injured himself, I'm like, well, anytime now he could have been walking around, he bumped his knee or something. When do you decide that it's an injury that's serious enough for him to reset? And I felt that the rules weren't clear enough. It was a bit fuzzy. I don't always like it, even when there's logic within a time playing situation. I like it when there's rules that I understand them better, and this one felt a little flimsy to me.
Oh, really? I understood it pretty much. Anything that would take him out of being able to do an athletics, something athletic, would be the severe case. Like a paper cut wouldn't do it, but if you have a broken hand, you have a torn ligament, you sprain your ankle, anything that would prevent you from being at your...
people can sprain their ankle like just while walking on the street.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, exactly.
It's fine. It's fine. Let's put it this way. If everything else about the movie was perfect, this thing, I would have let it slide. But I did find myself thinking to myself, well, what kind of... is there some kind of injury that it's just he got a minor sprain, so he'll stick around, and if it's a more serious sprain, he's out? These are things that I did think about, and I don't think about them when I watch Groundhog Day. But it's okay.
No, well, Groundhog Day is far more simpler. That's 100% for sure. For this one here, the way that I was reading it was like...
Simpler is sometimes better, though.
Simpler is 100% times better.
Okay.
Yeah, but this time here, when I was reading it, I was looking under, if it would be an injury that would prevent a player from being able to play the sport, that's what it triggers. That's when it triggers. And we get that sense with the fact that, like, okay, we get the injury on the football field, we get the injury many times on the baseball field. We get
Even if he broke his hand, there's probably some sports he could still play. They're like, some of them,
but the thing is, like, he's not playing at peak Bo, right? Because that's the other part.
I guess
he has to be in his peak.
Okay.
And
Right.
and then the other injury is like, well, it's either he dies or he's got an injury that prevents him from playing sports. and yeah, I would say that's a little bit. That part could use an extra beat where we see something like, for instance, he gets a paper cut, and he's like, oh, I guess
you solved it. You
Yeah.
solved it. If there would have been a few minor instances where you could tell that it didn't actually transfer him, and he's like, "Oh wow," and we reached the conclusion with him that it has to be X, Y, Z that causes him to do it, I would have been okay with it. But the beat is missing, and because that beat is missing, it's like an itch that annoys me while I read it.
Yeah. Oh no, I get that. Yeah. So yeah, with that being said, like, so he, for multiple times, Bo helps his kid Garrett with the Derby, and then when he wins the Derby, the next big part is he's back on the Raiders team for the playoff game, and he has a decision to make. Does he, now that he's spent some time with his kid, now that he's he celebrated a win that his kid got as if it was the greatest thing he'd ever experienced, which I actually really, really enjoyed reading that part. Does he go back to what he did before, or does he try to change fate again? And that's the question we'll leave up in the air for you guys out there. So, Price, with that being said, let's get into if there's any more final thoughts you have. Let's delve into those before we make a decision of whether or not we greenlight or pass on this script.
It's not a terrible script, but at the same time, it's also not one that I read and felt that it was complete, and again, no pun intended, home run, because I had issues with it. And it was a bit unfortunate because there have been screenplays that I've had issues with that I just said, well, this is just a stupid screenplay or it's poorly written. And I actually tell you, script, how is this even on the list? This is so poor and awful. Like, this is a disgrace. I would tell you about some of these screenplays.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel that way about this one. I felt that you had somebody writing it that you could tell was very enthusiastic about the certain things that maybe he got right in the screenplay, the sports, the references. You could tell that there was playfulness and fun in it, and I think that transferred to the script. But like I said, as much as you're committed to your idea, as much as you're excited, as much as you bring the nostalgia and the fun, I still feel like you can't ignore the story itself, because none of this matters if you don't have a story that has the right beats that really brings people through that journey. And I feel like the heart of the story isn't there enough, and that's an issue for me. That's my opinion.
All right, then. Okay, with that being said, would you give this a green light or a pass?
It's a complicated question, more than usual. If I could invite this guy to my office, if I'm like the studio head and I invite him to my office and I tell him, listen, you have some good ideas here. I didn't hate your screenplay. Go home, take a weekend, fix this thing. Come back, sit with me, show me how you fixed all your issues. He has a chance of getting a green light. But if he says like, no, this is my screenplay, then I'm like, okay, then I'll see you later.
So this would be like a pass in its current condition?
If I get a rewrite and he agrees and he does something and he fixes his issues, I'm considering a green light. But if there's no rewrite, as is, the way it is at this moment, then I have to pass on it. I'm unenthusiastically passing on it because I think it has potential, but without it being fixed, then it's just not good enough.
Okay, all right, good one. I mean, I don't disagree with the lacking parts for the family itself. But I do think it's got a whole lot of other strengths in there. So, I mean, well, with yours being a reluctant pass, mine might be a reluctant green light, just because I don't see a possibility where if this script were to go to the studio, where those things wouldn't be addressed and wouldn't be resolved, because the screenplay doesn't have a first act problem, and it doesn't have really a third act problem. Its second act problem, which is not a difficult fix at all, is just kind of like filling in that gap when it pertains to Garrett, and bridging the revelation of it's not about the sports, it's about the family. Because at the end of the script, it does pretty much say it's about the family, and we get a hint of that in the first act, but it's the only thing that's kind of missing in the second act, and that's kind of an easy fix compared to.
I'll tell you what I think. If this was maybe 10, 15 years ago, I would agree with you 100%, and I'd greenlight it thinking the studio system will fix it. But given the type of movies that I've watched in recent years, I no longer have that kind of faith that the studio system will fix it. I actually worry that there will be the wrong people in charge that'll just continue to pass this along through all the stages, never even realizing the mistakes. I know that sounds weird. You think, how could they not notice? But you've seen some of these movies in recent years. I mean, there have been plenty of them that they just kind of say, whatever, yeah, let's just film it.
Well, when it comes to like bigger IPs, yeah, they don't care. When it comes to something that's a comedy that's also a biopic, there's usually a little bit more heart into that. I mean, we'll see for certain when it comes to Madden, because that's supposed to be coming out next year, and we'll see. And that's technically more of an independent film that's got a studio distribution, which I would assume this one would follow suit in the same way if it went the distance. But yeah, I mean, I could see if it was like a bigger IP, I could definitely see them not caring about that part. But this is clearly designed to try and be like a smaller film. But
also, I mean, this is a smaller film, but how are you going to do all of this stuff? You're going to have actors that are going to be Will Smith, and I also thought of this thing. It seems like a movie that's not easy to make it a small movie unless you're bringing a bunch of actors that look nothing like the real ones, or using some kind of AI. I don't know exactly what would be done to get this movie done, but
I would see a lot of actors that would just do impersonations.
If you can do good impersonations, maybe you could pull it off. I also, I would say, like, I'll greenlight it, but you have a budget of like $20 million, and you have to fix the screenplay. That's what I would think.
Oh wow, you're gonna give him $20 million for this? I don't think it needs that much.
I just don't know, like, based on the scope of what they're describing, all these sports and stuff like that, even with CGI and green screens, whatever it is that you do, I can't imagine you can get like a decent cast. You can't get like crappy actors for this. You need some pretty good actors to carry this. I don't see how this production could run under 20. If you could do it for like 10 or 15, like, by all means. Mm-hmm. But let's put it this way: 10 to 20 million. They fix the screenplay. Maybe they can pull it off. Anything above 20 and not fixing, not a rewrite, I wouldn't give it a green light.
All right then. So going over to the Patreons. So if you are a Patreon over with the Script Doctor with Script on Saturdays, you get to vote on whether you'd greenlight or pass on the script. So the people over on the Patreon have voted. They have a 100% on the greenlight side of things. So despite some of the flaws that we pointed out, they still thought it was worthy of being put into production. Over on the live chat here, we have the audience has voted as well, and even based on our conversation price, they gave it 100% on a green light. So in spite of,
I'm the only holdout. Yeah, I'm the only holdout,
which is okay, because you have a very valid point.
Firm.
Yeah, you have a valid point, which is that in that middle act, there's the absence of the family aspect that is present in the first and third act is really what's holding it back for you for making it a green light. And I think that's a very reasonable critique, because I want to see that too. I think the only difference here is that I can see that as an easy fix, and you're looking at it more like budgetary, and also politics within the studio system could probably prevent such a thing from being suggested in order for it to go further, right?
I'll tell you another thing. I recently saw this movie called Good Fortune. Okay. Now, that movie had potential, but it also made mistakes, and also made mistakes about the character going through a certain process. And I really felt that walking out, that there were certain things about the movie that weren't bad, but somehow, again, the sum of all the parts, it was less than the sum of its parts. It annoys me when a movie is less than the sum of its parts, and especially when like characters are supposed to go through a personal journey and they don't do it. Now, if I was sitting there and they let me see the script in advance, I would have told them what they're doing wrong, and I would have demanded that they fixed it. Oddly, a lot of similar problems to this script they had with that one. The personal journeys, not defining the rules of their quirky world of whatever's going on there, of the kind of stuff that's not logical, if you know what I mean, like the fiction or science fiction, whatever you want to call it. They didn't describe their rules well enough, and the process wasn't strong enough. And yeah, they released the movie, and in my opinion, it wasn't good enough.
All right. Okay. Well, that's no, that's some fair points, man. I mean, that also happens too. I mean, it's kind of par for the course. 90% of the stuff that comes out is never up to par, and that's why the 10% that's good really does stand out and last.
The only thing I can say is that if there's one thing I did really like about the movie is I felt that Keanu Reeves gave one of the better performances I've seen in a long time, especially in a non-action performance. It was like Ted from Bill and Ted vibe, but older, and I actually really enjoyed seeing that in the movie for some reason. So at least it had some saving grace to it, but certainly issues. But we're not talking about that one. We're talking about this one. Just wanted to give you a recent example so people can maybe understand where I'm coming from.
No, I do. I don't disagree with where you're coming from, because it's a valid point to bring aware. And the other part too is, like, if Adam manages to stumble upon this podcast, and we're the only ones giving him that note, and he's in the same mindset that we are, like, that would, such a note would be a massive improvement to the script, especially when it comes to like pulling a bit more on the heartstrings, balancing out a little bit more of his Bo Jackson's athletic pursuits and his realization about the importance of family. I think that would be the part that makes it work. And the only advice I'd give him on a rewrite of that is try to not make it feel like a Hallmark movie and doing so. Try and maintain some of the comedy that you're peppered in throughout the script, so that it feels more like it works naturally with what's going on. And
watch the movies, watch some of the examples, Adam, if you're listening. Watch some of the examples that we were talking about and see how they balance between the fun and the humor and the heartfelt parts, and they found that balance. So I agree with you, script. And yeah, I hope Adam is listening, because even though everybody gave you a green light, I still think you should listen to what I'm saying and fix your screenplay, because you're very close. Close, but no cigar.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like he built a house without a foundation. So that's, I mean, it's not a huge effort.
No, it's not a disaster. It's not a disaster.
It's like adding dormers on. Like, just the house looks good.
Coat of paint, yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, Bryce, thanks so much, man, for joining us this week about this script for Bo Knows Infinity. Great discussion as always. I want to thank everyone out there listening live and also listening on the replay for your support with this show. I want to give a kudos to Darren M for being a mod in the live chat. Much appreciated. And to everyone else that's listening live, thank you so much for doing so. And same for everyone that's listening on the replay. As always, if you want to find out what script we'll be reading on the next show, you can find out by joining our Patreon. It comes with a 1 week free trial. On the base tier, you get to see a whole bunch of great content, articles about film and television, along with some analyses, some partial reviews, some musings, some tips and tricks on screenwriting itself. Plus, I've been also getting some great messages from other patrons here, asking me questions about certain screenwriting contests and screenwriting pursuits that have been popping up recently. So I've been doing some research into those, talking with my colleagues about them to see if those are legit or not. So hopefully I'll have some articles on the authenticity of those for anyone that's interested in pursuing screenwriting as a career that is part of the Patreon, that wants to maybe dabble in seeing if that's going to be something they want to pursue. I'll have ideally some more information for that in the coming weeks. I want to thank everyone for joining us this Saturday night. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And remember, guys, when it comes to great story, it all starts with the script.